watching HuffPost Live. I'm Caitlin Becker. With just 2 days to go until New Year's Eve, the countdown to 2016 has officially begun. But while everyone really wants to have a huge celebration, more often than not, the party, well, it just actually sucks. So how do you break with tradition and throw an awesome New Year's Eve party that people will be raving about for years to come? Here to help us just in time for 2016 are Elaine Swann, lifestyle and etiquette expert and author of Let Crazy Be Crazy, Brian Byrne, social news writer at Boston.com, and on set with me is Kathleen Pagan, an entertainment expert and lifestyle expert for Endlessly Elated. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Why do we put so much pressure on the New Year's Eve party? It's like the biggest party of the year that anyone throws.
It is. I mean, we're ringing in the new year. It's supposed to be fun and festive. I think people put too much pressure, but you really shouldn't. You should just have lots and lots of fun and cocktails, of course.
Of course, cocktails.
Yeah, I agree. I think for a lot of people, they're thinking about old things past and going into the new year. And so with doing so, people want to really just throw away all of that icky stuff that they had. And they're looking forward to, of course, a brighter new year. So we really go all out.
Exactly.
But Brian, then why do New Year's Eve parties always suck? Everybody wants to have a good New Year's Eve party, and I feel like every year we all go into it like the week before Christmas, ready to go, and then by the time the 31st rolls around, we're all already dejected, and then you have a crappy New Year's Eve party.
Tell me about it. I mean, as far as holidays go, I feel like New Year's Eve has a huge sadness potential. You know, it's like there's like way too much potential to be like looking back on all things you could have done and should have done and blah, 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 blah. I feel, you know, it's like, I feel like, and we do it every year too, you know, so I feel like there's just such an easy way just to fall into a rut of being like, okay, I'm going to have a few people over, going to watch the ball drop, like Dick Clark, Ryan Seacrest, blah, blah, blah. And I think you can really have a fun time with New Year's Eve if you just reinvent the wheel and have a really good time with it.
I want to talk a little bit about the New Year's Eve party because sometimes you have two options really when it comes to New Year's Eve. It's either going out or staying in. And we put out a Twitter call out to know what all of you people in the HuffPost Live community think about New Year's Eve parties or events. And I want to read two tweets. Want to weed, really? In 2016, I'm going to be able to speak. This one from Sketchy Jeff says, his worst part about going out on New Year's Eve is overpaying for the same club you just went to the week before for free and paying twice the amount for drinks. #Vegas. And then this next one from Rebecca says, the price and the fact that you need a reservation everywhere. What happened to spontaneity? So Kathleen, right? This sort of leads me to the New Year's Eve party, though. Yeah. Sometimes a house party is better than going out.
100% better. I never
5,000% better.
Yeah.
Okay, so
do not go
You've all
out.
heard 5,000% better house party.
For sure. You do not go out on New Year's. You overpay. You never get a drink at the bar because there's 90 million people ahead of you. 100. Stay home. Host.
So then how do you have a good party? Kathleen, what are some tips that we need to have a good New Year's Eve party?
You know, I really think outside the box. I think a lot of people have such preconceived notions of party planning, whether, you know, you have to be fancy, have a 3-course meal. Take that all aside. Like a couple of years ago, I did a breakfast-inspired menu. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I had like French toast, I had like Eggs Benedict sandwiches, and I mean, honestly, till this day, people are like, that was amazing, because they don't expect it. So
I don't know who your friends are. I have never been invited to a 3-course meal party. We barely get pizza and like entree. That's the world I'm living in. Elaine, what do you think makes? I love this idea that Kathleen just brought up of having something a little more unexpected, doing sort of a breakfast and brunch theme in the evening. But I mean, what else can you do to make it fun? Do you have to have a champagne toast?
You know what? No, you don't have to have a champagne toast. You can actually have what I call a signature drink toast. And so what you do is get people to, when they come in the door, to kind of create a really fun beverage. And this is at the house because I so prefer house parties. But to create a concoction and have a contest and name their drink for the new year. And so they're going to toast to whatever their drink is. And we've done that every single year at my house, and people have a great time. The other thing I do to really make it fun is rather than focus so much on New Year's Eve, I have a New Year's Day brunch that starts literally after the stroke of midnight. Wherever people are doing whatever they're doing, they know, come over to our house if they've been invited. And I do the same thing every year. We do, like you said, the breakfast, but it's literally a brunch. So it's everything from breakfast to lunch that we serve at our house. And so I have everything from, the mashed potato bar to a breakfast bar to, there's so different salads. And then, of course, there's certain types of foods that people feel are lucky for the New Year. So we have that as well. And
wait, really people think food is lucky for the New Year's? What are those foods? I've never even heard of this.
So one food that comes from, it's a southern tradition, but black eyed peas means good luck. And so that's a food that's served for the New Year. So I always make sure to make a small pot of black eyed peas as well.
I'm coming over.
Right, I'm going over. I'm going to you. Brian, are you
We'll
with
be
me?
there.
Do we need new friends? I feel like all the New Year's Eve parties I've ever gone to have had none of this kind of planning. I mean, is that what hurts a New Year's Eve party? Because I feel like you and I have been going to the same ones where it is crappy alcohol or not enough alcohol, no food, and it's no different than any other house party.
It's awful. I know, because I'm a college student. I'm still a senior. Reality will be slapping me across the face in May. So all of my friends are also, broke college students.
I'm 30, so I go to the same kinds of holiday parties as Brian does in college.
That's good. But yeah, so that's what I'm dealing with. But I think you can really make the most out of, your broke friends and living in tiny cramped apartments and have a really fun house party on New Year's, as opposed to going out and spending literally all the money you have in your savings account just to have half of a good time,
And Kathleen, for most of us,
you know what?
Oh, go ahead.
One of the things I think one of the things you can do, Brian, especially for your broke friends, is really start planning now and do something along the lines of a potluck. But you need that person with that A-type personality that's going to whip everybody in shape, come up with a menu, and then assign people to bring things or either let them know what they're going to bring. So that way it's a little less hefty on your pocket and everyone kind of pitches in. But as long as it's well planned, then it doesn't end up being so crappy. So then you'll at least, not have 15 desserts, unless you make it a dessert party too. That could be fun.
That's
you could do that, just dessert and champagne or what have you. But anyway, planning ahead and creating the type of party that everyone kind of pitches in can really help on the pocket.
Kathleen, how do you manage your guest list for something like this? Everybody wants something to do on New Year's Eve, and how do you figure out whether or not you invite all of your friends or work people or friends of friends or spouses or plus ones? How do you do it?
So New Year's Eve parties tend to get a little, for the most part, people are way, way, way relaxed. And so in my opinion, this is not necessarily the best party for your coworkers because you really just want to let your hair down and enjoy yourself. I mean, I'm not talking getting sloppy drunk because that's not very ladylike, but you do want to be way, way more relaxed. So New Year's Eve parties, in my opinion, should be just your really close, intimate group of friends. These are the people, and think in your mind, am I going to take this person into the new year with me or leave them where they were? And so if they're on your list to bring along with you, then those are the ones who should be at your party. But the more intimate the party, the better it is, because then you're with people you really like, you really enjoy, and you really want to be part of your future.
Kathleen, something that was just brought up is the idea of getting sloppy drunk. Now,
I'm for it.
I tend to imbibe once or twice. Anybody who watches HuffPostLive has seen me imbibe many times on set. But when you're hosting the party, even when you're a guest, how do you figure out how much is too much alcohol to have at your party, and what do you do when you have the sloppy drunk guest?
So, to be completely honest with you,
Are you the sloppy drunk guest?
probably.
Kathlene's the sloppy drunk guest. It's your party. You do what you want.
Yes, it's New Year's. Come on, it's fun. I'm not by any means saying to get out of control or anything like that, but it's a good time.
That's the best stock photo we've ever had, by the way.
That's amazing.
Did everybody see that?
Me.
That's the best stock photo I've ever seen. So, I mean, how important is it to have bottles of water, stuff for the people who A, aren't drinking at all, or need to start alternating the old booze and water situation?
So you know what I actually do, which I think is a very good standout sort of thing, is I actually do hangover kits on New Year's. So I literally, in a little box, put some aspirin, some water. I usually put a dessert, like a cookie or chips, because, let's be honest, when we're a little, tipsy, we like to have those desserts. And I send them home with it. It is the best thing, because the next morning when you wake up, you're like, thank God I have this.
I love a good hangover kit.
Yes.
Brian, the other part that we need to get to for a good New Year's Eve party is, of course, the New Year's Eve kiss. Everybody wants somebody to kiss at midnight. This year, I'm spending New Year's Eve with my mother and my dogs, so enjoy it, kids. How much pressure do people put on themselves to have that certain someone at the end of the night to kiss, and then how freaking disappointing is it when you're me and you turn and you look at your dog?
I mean, if all I have is a dog to kiss on New Year's, it'll be a good New Year.
Yes, I agree.
My Welsh Corgi is all I need in life. So, I mean, we would all love to have someone special to kiss on New Year's, but if you don't, and if you just have a coworker to your right, or, a best friend to your left, make the most of it. Get a smooch out of it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the fact that you're in good company, even if you don't have that special someone with you. Just don't, snog your way into 2016.
Or do. It'll be quite the story the next day. I want to bring up a couple of more tweets that we have coming in here. This one is from my friend Brian over at 2Fab, who says, getting home after. Driving is out, getting an Uber is impossible, and public transportation in LA is no bueno. And I think basically anywhere out of like Chicago and New York City, public transportation is kind of out anyway. If you're hosting a party, is it your responsibility to make sure everybody's getting home safe?
I say yes. You just don't want it to be on your watch, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I think is always key is people like normally live by each other, like especially that you're inviting. So I'm always like, why don't you carpool? Why don't you do a car service? Set a pickup time, pick up both from your house, and when you're leaving my apartment, you kind of split the bill, and everybody gets home because there's no reason for drinking and driving. So for sure.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Any host should absolutely stay away from the possibility of any sort of lawsuit later on for someone getting into an accident, because when you are serving people alcohol, you are putting yourself fiscally, because I live in California and it's a sue-happy state, you're putting yourself in harm's way if you don't make preparations. So I agree with that. And another thing you can do is kind of really think about how many folks you're going to have at your house, and make it so people can maybe spend the night. Have some little overnight kits available for people. So you can say, you know what, this one can take this room here, or a couch here, or a chair there, or whatever, so people can kind of camp out and enjoy themselves. But just make some amenity kits to make them feel comfortable, so that way they don't feel forced to go home. If someone cannot drive and has to stay at your house, then at least you've made it comfortable for them to stay.
And Elaine, do you usually tell people that ahead of time? Just FYI,
Oh, yeah.
if you need to say, you can say so they can be prepared?
Yep.
I do that, absolutely. In advance, I let people know, you know what, when you come, you don't have to leave, so come prepared. And so people come, but of course, I just go all out so they know they're coming for the amenity kits. I'm literally planning for New Year's Eve already, even before Christmas, because I love my New Year's Day brunch and everything. So having amenity kits and letting people know in advance that they can stay, so that way it kind of takes the weight off. And for those individuals who can't, just like the example she said earlier, is to get people to carpool, because everything else is out of the way. So yeah, carpooling is great as well.
I want to bring up something that Netflix is doing, which I think is great, because we're talking about a very adult New Year's Eve, but for many people who have kids, they're a part of the equation too, and Netflix is providing a helping hand to parents who don't want their kids to stay up too late. They've actually made countdowns featuring favorite cartoon characters, so parents can actually ring in the new year with their kids at whatever time they want on the 31st. Now, Kathleen, if you're throwing a party and you've got parents with kids and they want to bring them, how great is this that you can provide something that is sort of fun and get some out of your way so you can hit the old bottle? I don't have kids, obviously.
Neither do I. But I do have a goddaughter, and it's so funny Netflix is doing this now. We've been doing this for years. We didn't have it on TV, but we would literally start counting 10, 9, and it was like time for the kids, and they would get so excited. The noisemakers would go, and then they were in bed 9-ish, 8:30. It's amazing. Woo. So now that we've got it on Netflix, even better.
That's good.
And Brian, you're young. Would you want a kids-free party? I feel like I'd want a kids-free party.
I want a kids-free party.
I mean, if my 21-year-old friends are bringing kids to the party, I think there's a bigger issue at hand.
True.
The kids at home, please.
Brian, since you're the youngin' in the group, you're the baby here, what is your opinion on food and how to handle it at a New Year's Eve party? We can't go to Elaine and Kathleen here because they're catering the most kick-ass New Year's Eve parties anyone has ever seen. But for those of us that are ordering Domino's, what do you do? I wouldn't order Domino's. I actually throw quite a party, if I do say so myself. But I'll be with you right here. How do you manage food with, I figure it's going to be bigger parties when you're younger. You're going to have more people, especially when you're home from school or you're still in a college town. What's the deal with the food?
Exactly. I mean, my go-to New Year's Eve food group is champagne, so that's a nice way to get appreciated. But no, I mean, there's glory to appetizers. Have everyone bring just something simple. You know, you can have like a veggie platter. I had this delicious last year. It was pretzels wrapped in bacon, sprinkled with brown sugar, thrown in the oven. It was salty, sweet, crunchy goodness that everyone is satisfied with. And that's like, is the college palate, you know, just like sweet, salty, mushy, fatty goodness. So appetizers are perfect. They're simple. Have everyone bring one. It'll be good. And it's late enough that everyone had dinner, so it's like no one's too hungry. We just want to drink.
That's a good question. What time do you start, Brian? You say it's late enough because you don't want people. And then again, I have a dinner reservation tonight. It's 7:30, and it sounds so late to me. What time do you start the New Year's Eve party?
Well, it depends. I mean, if it's all really close friends, you want to spend just hours and hours and hours. But have them come over, you know, 7, 8 o'clock. Let them help you prep and set up things. Otherwise, I'd say, you know, 9 o'clock is good, 3 hours before the ball drops, and then they'll be around for, you know, an hour or two afterwards. So like 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is good.
And Kathleen, what do you think?
I agree. 8 or 9 is good. But I'm going to say something. I'm all about inviting the neighbors because you will not have any noise complaints. And that is key on New Year's. Plus, you live in close proximity as it is. You should be friendly with them. Bring them over, have a party with them, and you can party up all night, and no one's going to be like, can you take it down a notch?
That's a good idea.
Hashtag winning.
Hashtag winning 2016. And Elaine, for someone like you who's kind of really kicking off her party almost after the new year hits, what time do you tell people to start showing up?
I tell people to start showing up after the ball drops so they can go and do whatever it is they're doing. Some people join us in advance, but there are others who come after they leave their parties because they know that this is going to be the place they stay for the rest of the night on into the morning. And so people can show up anytime after midnight. I start a little bit later in the evening, which is 10 o'clock, so that way because we go so long into the next day, and so 10 o'clock. But I tell people to show up just after the ball drops and come on over, have some food, eat, sleep, and bring in the new year together.
Do you have like a bouncer at the door for anybody who came from party number 1 or 2 and has had had the champagne a little too much?
No, because you know what? I am very, very selective with whom I invite into my home. So it's always people who are going to behave themselves and not have to get kicked out. And I know people are going to, I'd rather them come and be safe with me rather than somewhere else. And for the most part, we have a few people that do come afterwards, but for the most part, people kind of show up just a little bit beforehand. And then some don't even come until later in the morning. They go straight home, and then they still come over because I just serve brunch all throughout the day. So people are in and out throughout the day as well. It's so much fun.
I have an answer to our question here of what's the worst part of New Year's Eve, and Sir Lurks Moore says people. So Kathleen, if you have your bah humbug guest, your friend who doesn't want to be around people, do you try to force them to have a good time, or do you just say you're going to bring down the party, so sit alone in your PJs and eat a Hot Pocket?
It all depends on who it is.
Yeah, people who want to stay home, honey, leave them. People who want to stay home, leave them at home. Some people are introverts, and they really just prefer to just reflect on themselves and whatever it is and journal and sing whatever it is they want to do. So if that's the case, then go ahead and leave them home. Don't try to force someone to come out who prefers to be alone. Just make sure they're okay and there's not anything else going on with them. But if it's just they want solitude to bring in the new year, then buy them some candles and a journal and let them enjoy themselves alone.
And you think you should be selective as to what you do with who, depending on who the person is?
Yes, I mean, I think if it's like my best friend, I can be like, girl, get it together and stop. If it's not my best friend, then you kind of have to play it cool, but you don't want the Debbie Downer because that just brings the energy down. And if we're talking about sucking New Year's parties, that would be one of the things that will bring your party to a disaster. So, I usually take them aside. I'm like, here, have some more cocktails. That usually does the trick.
But what do you do when you have the Debbie Downer or somebody who's had too many cocktails? And I have had friends like this who have just overdone it, and then they become the criers or the wine. Like, see? Look, okay, Brian, I'm throwing this to you because you're shaking your head like you know what's up. What do you do with that person?
Exactly. I mean, a Debbie Downer is going to be a Debbie Downer, unfortunately. So, I mean, I think a good game to sort of have your friends play as, everyone's getting progressively sloppier, high and low. Tell your high and low of 2015. That way, the Debbie Downers among us can give their, pessimistic sort of ode to 2015. And then they have to come up with something positive as well and use that as a jumping off point for a conversation. It's like, your cat didn't die of feline AIDS? Awesome. Tell me more about that. That's a great way of getting.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
What is your thought on games, Kathleen, for a New Year's Eve party? Do you think you should be, I mean, high and low is good because you can just like kind of go around the room and do it, but like an organized, do you feel like you need to have activities for your guests?
No, I honestly, I've never thrown a New Year's party and had games at it. I'm not opposed to them. Maybe with a Debbie Downer, you might want to do that and see if like he or she kind of joins in on the crowd and has fun. There's a lot of fun games, a lot of drinking games, Cards of Humanity is like super fun, and things like that if it's an adults party, of course, if not Monopoly. But I've never done it, and I don't feel the need. It's fine.
Yeah, well, speaking of drinking games, as I mentioned earlier, the one drinking game that we have is where people make their own concoction. And so I think if you do something that's kind of interactive, and that just depends on your party. I mean, if it's a really great mix of people and there's conversation and people are really enjoying themselves, it's great. But if you do find there's a lull in something, then every host should have something to do to fill in that gap because you want your party to, be talked about as something positive and not to where it was boring. So make sure you have something prepared, regardless of if it's a drinking game or I love the high and low. I'm going to steal that from you, Brian.
Credit to
have
Brian.
Something in your back pocket for your guests to enjoy that evening, just in case you need to do something to kind of fill in the time.
Do you feel like you need to make this specific party different than any of the other ones you've thrown throughout the year?
No. It's funny because as I listen to all of you, I feel like we have all these preconceived notions of what New Year's needs to be, and that's why we think it's sucky. Because we come up with these expectations of it needs to be the best time ever, we need to be, drunk, have a great time. In reality, it should just be about having fun, family and friends, neighbor, whoever you want to invite, and just go out and have a good time. Drink if you want to drink, play games if you want to play games, do whatever you want. Because ultimately, that's going to be the best time.
Exactly. The lower the expectation we set, then the more rewarding it is for all of the individuals who attend the party. So don't create this thing to where it's this big bash or what have you. That's why the party that I have and what I would suggest for others to have is something that's intimate at your home, great people, good food, fun, that's it. And make the people who are there make your party rather than you create this atmosphere or this environment through the roof. I mean, other people can do that, let them spin all that sort of thing, but it's really just about connected to and how we want to bring the new year. And if we're doing it with people we really enjoy, that's what's going to make the party and not necessarily all of these other outside elements.
I know quite a few people that sometimes do weddings on New Year's Eve. Do you think that they're stealing your New Year's Eve away from you if they're planning their wedding on that day?
Yeah, well, if they do it at your party or at the same time as your party, then yeah. If not, and it's something that you're invited to, then enjoy it and go to it. And have fun. Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, they got married on New Year's Eve.
I would have canceled my party to go to Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith's wedding.
Yeah.
So Kathleen, what do you think? Do you think the New Year's Eve wedding is just no good?
I'm not about rules. Why not? If there's anything, it's a wedding. It's so festive. Are you kidding me? I want to be invited to a wedding on New Year's. It's free booze.
That's what I'm saying.
Great food.
And you can dress up.
And you dress up. And you don't have to wait online at the bar.
I'm all for this. Someone get married. Someone get married for the old New Year's Eve.
I know. What a way to start the new year.
Yes.
It's a great way to start the new year and celebrate with a new couple and a new life and a new step in life. So I think it's great. Yeah.
I'm for it.
So speaking of dressing up, before we wrap up here, what are your thoughts on dress code for a New Year's Eve party?
I'm all about being glammed up. Bring out the sequins mini, the fringe. Black is very classic. A good wing liner always does the trick. I say do it up. It's New Year's. Bring it in how you want to end it.
Elaine?
I agree. Vamp it up, honey. You should definitely look good for New Year's Eve. Even if you're going to someone's house, this is not the time to go slouching over there, what have you. So, yeah, vamp it up. Do it up, even if it's in the privacy of someone's home. Enjoy yourself and set a precedent for the new year for yourself.
Brian, how are the kids doing it? What are the kids dressing up in for New Year's Eve?
Brian.
Dressing up. I mean, I don't think any of us want to kiss our Welsh Corgi at midnight, so I think dressing up is important even if you are a youngin' as well. So look nice. Make your mom proud.
I'm going to be with my mom, so I will make her proud. Are you guys actually throwing New Year's Eve parties this year?
I am. I'm hosting New Year's Eve. I'm ready.
Brian, I know you're not hosting New Year's Eve.
I am not. I'm in New Hampshire right now. I won't even be in Boston for New Year's, so it's going to be a very cold and miserable New Year's, but I'm going to be with fellow college friends, so we'll commiserate together, and it'll be good.
And you're doing a house party?
Doing a house party, exactly. Nice and simple. Appetizers.
And what is your transportation situation?
I will be sleeping over.
Yes.
That's what we like to hear. Elaine, Elaine, you're still on with your annual sort of at midnight
my
party?
annual lunch. It's planned, the menu's ready, and people have got their pajamas that they can change into the next day. My amenity kits are ready, honey.
How far in advance do you guys start actually prepping? I mean, Elaine, you said that you start planning before Christmas.
I do, and the reason why is because Christmas gets really busy. There's just a week in between now and then, and so I start planning well enough in advance, and it's real easy to throw the little kits together. So I start throwing those together, and I get my menu together, and so then this week is when I kind of do the shopping for food and prep and so forth. So I start in advance, but it's bigger for me. So for Christmas, it's really quiet for me. I always like a really quiet Christmas because my New Year's is a big deal.
And Kathleen, how far in advance do you start?
Same thing. Usually I start, because I do Christmas as well. I have a Christmas brunch instead of a New Year's brunch. And I do the week before, like Christmas. I start both, Christmas is probably planned, so I start New Year's. So I've been doing it for now.
So for people who are going to be throwing theirs this week, if you haven't started planning and prepping, you screw.
Yeah.
No, it can be done.
If you haven't started planning and prepping, start now. And don't take too much on. Don't set the bar so high. Get other people to help you so that way they can join in and make it kind of a nice concerted effort.
Well, I'm going to your parties this New Year's Eve. Brian and I will be there.
Yes.
Elaine, Brian, and Kathleen, thank you so
you.
much for joining us today. And of course, to the members of our HuffPost Live community who tweeted us all of those wonderful comments, thank you so much for joining us. And whatever you are doing New Year's Eve, get sauced, make out with somebody random, but don't drive home. Stick around HuffPost Live. More coming up next.